We have more for your ears only. I'm Catherine Herzog.
I'm David Alpern with this quote from the news. The mission was a farce and the observers have been fooled. That was Anwar Abdel Malik, who resigned from the Arab League observer mission to Syria as President Bashar al-Assad declared he would continue to battle against the continuing opposition. Now this.
Welcome to the madhouse.
One simply has to maximize your appeal, make you look and sound like the leader that you could be.
With all due respect, when one has been to war...
With all due respect, sir, I have done battle every single day of my life.
The marvelous Meryl Streep plays the often fierce former British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher on screen in The Iron Lady, which opened wide around the country last week with a good shot at this weekend's Golden Globe Awards and the upcoming Oscars. Much of it deals with Thatcher's rise to power from a working-class background, breaking into the male-dominated Tory party and the House of Commons, transforming herself from a mere politician to a tough world leader, though eventually forced from office.
But journalist and author Gail Sheehy, writing for thedailybeast.com last week, turned a spotlight on the softer, dare we say sexier side of the Iron Lady, who knew when to show a little leg if it seemed beneficial. To talk about that now, for your ears only, we're pleased to be joined again by Gail Sheehy. Last hear about her book, Passages in Caregiving. Welcome back to our show.
Love being with you, David.
10 years into her position as Prime Minister, you recall, Thatcher underwent a sort of fashion makeover. Give us a before and after snapshot, if you will, how Thatcher presented herself early in her political career, how her wardrobe changed.
Well, early she was very, very stiff, buttoned up to the neck, lots of big, ugly hats that she was ridiculed for, very mannish blue suits and long hemlines, sensible shoes. When she had been in power for 6-7 years, as she told me in an interview, well, now she believed she was right all the time. And so she had this late-blooming sexual charisma, which most Americans would find laughable. But it was very much on evidence around her chaps, as she would call them, or her star boys. And she began showing more of her legs in the House of Commons for her backbenchers sitting behind her, sometimes rubbing one calf with the other, and wearing off-black stockings. She had her wardrobe makers, aquascutum, revamp her entire wardrobe. She had her skirts hiked up. She had her necklines lowered, and she wore high heels and sometimes strappy heels. And to the people who were around her, she began using that sexual side to manipulate the men around her.
Was there a noticeable public reaction to a female world leader dressing this way back then?
Well, she actually got some points for it because she had been so ridiculed for the ridiculous hats and the very uptight matronly clothes, which she had to do as a first female who had come from, northern England with a grocer's daughter's accent and into that cauldron of sexism and classism that was England at that time. So she was very, very careful, developed with the help of an elocution teacher a very plummy accent, sometimes more plummy than the Queen.
Besides looking more appealing to the men around her, she also liked the men around her to be pretty good looking. Talk about her relation with those chaps.
Oh, well, she all her guys looked something like 1930s American matinee idols. Her favorite would have been Clark Gable, somebody who was a little bit, naughty. And she used to sit with her men up until 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, drinking whiskey, working very hard at 10 Downing. Her husband would be asleep. She only needed four hours of sleep herself. She also had a chap who was young, very handsome, much better than her own son, and she would have him travel with her. And the funniest story that was told me was by one of her ambassadors. She would like to meet him at the plane when he returned to Heathrow in her Daimler limousine, where she could push the buttons and they would both suddenly be reclining, almost, as if they were in bed. And they would get very cozy, and they would just share state secrets and gossip.
Thatcher also experimented with some holistic medical therapies as part of this middle-age rejuvenation. Talk about the Hindu practitioner who added a jolt, literally, to Thatcher's makeover and the routine that was actually involved.
Well, she actually would ask her to strip and step up on a stepladder and get into an electrical bath. Madam was a practitioner of ancient Ayurvedic arts, and she had baffle plates in this bath, and she could control them with a little button at the end, and put the amps up to 0.3 and create waves of electrical energy over a period of an hour that were meant to recharge the nervous system.
You actually tried it yourself. How did it go?
Well, I was scared to death. I was standing at the top of this thinking, what do I have to do to pin down a story? And the madam, shamed me. She said, I have the most high-powered women in the world in my tub. Prime ministers and ambassadors, kings, princes, and little bitty emirs. You have nothing to fear. And she did say that she had Thatcher, Pamela Harriman, and Mikhail Gorbachev, who was sent by Thatcher.
Besides the pricey fee she charged, she also came away with what you thought was some real insight into Thatcher the woman.
Yes, she said, Mrs. Thatcher is a very, very feminine woman. She said, like me, we're very strong, but we're not hard. We know what we think, where we want to go, but when away from the public eye at home, the man is boss. And interestingly, the Iron Woman film doesn't show Dennis Thatcher as boss. He was very, very happy to have Margaret have center stage. He was never competitive with her, but he was kind of the clown. He was the relaxation therapist. He would put on a, pink Swami's hat and make her laugh. And she fussed over him and, cared for him and made sure he wore his galoshes. And they were very, 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 very close. And you see in the film that she was actually quite dependent on him.
Gail Sheehy is the author of Passages in Caregiving, Turning Chaos into Confidence from Morrow. Her most recent piece on Miss Thatcher is online at thedailybeast.com.
And this has been For Your Ears Only.